Delta 547, wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
Taxi via Juliet.
Air traffic controllers protect our nation's airways. These are the stories of real air traffic controllers to boldly deliver a safe, orderly, and expeditious flow of air traffic from their departure point to their final destination.
Wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
Working fighter jets, they tend to be very individual type people, and they are not crazy about controllers telling them where to go and what to do. Working these groups on the East Coast, going into McGuire, these 105s would come back from Vietnam and running around in traffic in the Northeast. There were various times where they would cancel and just go off on their own. That's fine, but they like to fly formations around commercial jets. And that was kind of upsetting to the pilots and the passengers, as 2 or 3 fighter jets would come up alongside them and hold hands. When we tried to get them to understand it's something they can't do, they would not have their radios on and they wouldn't acknowledge us. We would try to find out who they were going back to McGuire, or watch where they were going. There were other military bases up there. Where they were going, we would try to get information on them.
Did you ever have an exchange with an air carrier and the F-105s?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And the commercial pilots were not crazy about it, because
well, they were PCA, right? I mean, they were up in flight levels. So did they declare?
No, this was below. This was below 18. You know, they kept
so
it.
Were they saying that they're VFR? These 105s?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy cow!
Back then.
A flight of 4 F-105s?
Yeah. Back then they could run around BFR. They wouldn't go supersonic,
yeah,
but they were below positive controlled airspace, and they like to do some odd things. I remember one was on the right side of a national 727, proceeded to roll over the top and over to the other side, upside down and next to him. They would be very friendly and wave, you know, to these guys, and they were the times. Back then, the skies were not as congested as they are now.
What about the hung rocket?
Yes. There I was working airspace from Norfolk, Virginia up to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and over to Philadelphia. And I'm busy, but I'm expecting 2 Navy A4s coming up from Norfolk that I'm going to be taking over to Navy Willow Grove, which is outside of Philadelphia. And as I'm working, I see the targets on these A4s, but they're climbing. And I talked to my manual controller, and I said, call the Norfolk controller and find out why they're climbing. They shouldn't be. And he gets on the phone talking to Norfolk and starts laughing. And I said, what's the matter? He says, you wouldn't believe it. I said, I wouldn't believe what? He says, you wouldn't believe it. I said, what wouldn't I believe? He says, you wouldn't believe it. I said, what? And he proceeds to tell me that the lead A4, which was a Navy aircraft, they were out over the ocean doing a live fire with heat-seeking missiles. The lead A4 had a total electrical failure, and one of the missiles got hung up on the wing. In the meantime, he's had a total electrical failure, and his instruments are gone. So he has to stay above the clouds, and he starts climbing. His wingman follows him, but his wingman loses him. And now these 2 aircraft are up going towards the northeast with a hung rocket on the wing. They're not talking to each other, and we can't find them. So I told my manual controller to give me the wingman. And I didn't know what to do because I had all sorts of flights going to the Northeast, flights going to Kennedy and stuff. So I didn't want to move anybody, so I made a blanket broadcast for all aircraft on the frequency to reduce to holding pattern airspeed. Keep an eye out for a blue Navy A4 or possibly the contrail from a launched heat-seeking missile. And now I adjust my radar.
Well, do you remember any remarks that came back on that?
I believe one of the guys said, "Are you nuts?" And I said, I'm serious. I'm serious. And I had to adjust my radar so I could get primary hits on the radar because this A4 didn't have any of its electronics on. And I had 3 targets. I took the wingman towards one of the targets to see if it was his lead. It wasn't. Then I started moving towards another target, and an Eastern up towards Atlantic City said that he thought he saw a blue airplane out over the coast making circles. So I took the wingman up to that target. It turned out it was the lead. I had them join up. They were above the clouds. I had them join up and then take them back to the southeast down towards Norfolk over the ocean. They got the guy to shake off his missile instead of letting it launch into a major metropolitan area like Philadelphia. And then they got below the clouds so they could go, the lead could follow the wingman back to Navy Willow Grove to land. And no one got shot down. It was a great day.